think. Okay. We'll just wait because it'll start popping up when people start joining, and then I'll start talking. Yeah, this is a really awkward part. You just kind of have to sit through it.
Yeah, but this is all going to be live too, isn't it?
Yeah.
So when you look back, just make it entertaining.
Exactly. There are 3 people viewing, so we'll get started. Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Impowered. Over the past decades, there's been a steady increase in women's empowerment. To us, women must possess self-worth, confidence, and freedom to choose their needs and requirements. Classifying people based on their gender is unreasonable and unnecessary, yet still some women are expected to fit a certain social norm, and anything unconventional is deemed incorrect. To overcome these situations and to have an independent role in society, women empowerment is needed. And today's episode is our drop of water in efforts to achieving a society where we're viewed as equal parts. Joining me today is an incredible woman who has very quickly become an inspiration to me, and I have no doubt will become one for you after you've watched this episode. Harjeet, thank you for taking the time out and talking to us today. Your journey is nothing short of powerful for me, and I'm so excited to be sharing this conversation with you today.
Well, I'm excited to do that.
Thank you. I'd like to quickly give our viewers a little background on you as an actress, MC, and now an author. She's acted in short films such as Tough Love, Inferno, Isaac, and US Weekly's Famous Feuds. You've also done corporate work as well as commercial work, including Nana Paneer, Leon's, and Canada Dry. And now you've also published your very own book called Autumn Love. Your portfolio is absolutely endless. I was trying to look for it, and there's just so much going on. It was so hard to narrow it down. But before we get started, I'd like for you and for everyone else just to close their eyes for 10 seconds. As you close them, I want you to imagine what an empowered woman looks like. When you've gotten a clearer picture, share your thoughts with us through the comment section below, and we will get started there. So for you, what is that picture that you see as you kind of imagine what an empowered woman looks like?
An empowered woman, she knows what she wants, and she's not afraid to get it. She knows that there's hurdles to get it. And this is what I'm seeing. And it's like she sees all these hurdles ahead of her, but she doesn't let them hold her back. They just make her stronger. And she's just going to go after what she wants. And she knows that there will be people that will bring her down along the way, but she doesn't focus on that. She focuses on the people that will lift her up. And in turn, she will lift others up. And she'll create a network around her of positive, empowered women as well. And she's just going to go up and up and up. And whenever she's down, she doesn't live in that moment forever because she knows that there's an end to that moment.
No, I think there's power in how all of us perceive us powerful, strong women in different ways. Yet our end goal and the bigger picture, whatever we strive for, has a very similar theme to it. So I think that's unique, and that's something that joins womanhood together in itself. I want to start off our little discussion by you telling us a little bit about yourself. I know your portfolio, like I've said, is so diverse, so it's incredibly inspiring where you are today. Where is that inspiration drawn from? Like, has it been something that has been inherited? Have you had strong women who have led you to this path, or is it something that as your journey, you've kind of grown and developed into the person that you are today?
I think, well, obviously my journey has brought me to where I am today. And even though along the way I've fallen a lot and I've been down for long periods of time at a time, I've always managed to pick myself up and get back to start again. And I'm still learning every day. I'm not just at the top of my game right now, but I've realized that when you are down, like I just said earlier, it's not the end of your story. There's going to be a better end to your story, and you've got to make that happen. So I've been inspired by a lot of things around me, individuals that have told me a story For example, I'm going to give you some examples of women, and we're all familiar. Well, I am definitely familiar with Navneet, and I had the opportunity to meet her and hear her story, and just knowing what she went through is phenomenal. And to have to tackle it with a family is very difficult. To tackle anything when you have, as a woman, you don't carry the same responsibilities as a man in a family. When you're a mother, you're a wife, and you have so many more responsibilities because you're still playing a daughter to your parents as well if they're around, and it's not easy. So to go through anything like similar to what Navneet went through, and have to still be strong for other people, it's kind of like we can never really be weak.
True.
We always have to paint a smile on our face. We always have to stand tall, and we can never show that we're hurting. And a lot of times that's what happens is we hurt in private. And so hearing from people like Navneet is very inspirational. Then, my parents, I have to give them all the credit. My dad's not a woman, but
Yeah.
he's all about women empowerment. And he has like 4 girls and a boy. I'm one of 5.
Wow.
Yeah, and so my dad was very adamant that I want my daughters to go to school. I mean, his son, of course that's going to follow, but it was so important to my dad that we all got an education, because he didn't want us to be like, in our culture, just be wives and be submissive.
Right.
He wanted us to have a brain of our own and to excel in academics, and not just follow the normal in our culture.
The norm that's set up.
That's exactly right. And then then you meet my mother, and you'll see that there is nothing short of being empowered with my mom. And people get very confused. I mean, it's not a typical like brown household in a sense, because my mom does have a say, so
I think that's
so it's a nice feeling for me to know that women are important and their opinion is valued, and so it's nice for me to experience that. But when you go out into our culture and you try and form a relationship based on what I've been exposed to, it's not the same. But I know that a woman does have a voice, and she should be allowed to voice her opinion and not belittle anybody else, but support them. And I don't know if you've heard the expression, something along the lines of, the wife is always right. The man might be the head of the family, but the woman, she's the neck. She's the one that turns the head, right? And even if the relationship is not the greatest in situations, the man will always need the woman for support. No, the woman is motivated. She's going to turn him this way. She's going to help him make choices, and she's the one is going to help him grow. And then when you see a man as a child, they usually turn to their mother for support.
Yeah, the whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, without a woman, you realize that there's really not much in the way of support and encouragement. I'm not saying that men don't support and encourage, because they can and they do. But this is about women empowerment, so I want to focus on women and the greatness of us.
Yeah, no, it's funny you mentioned how your dad has been such a strong player in the whole women empowerment and raising strong women. I've had very similar experience where with me, it's just me and my sister, and my dad's always pushed us to be the best versions of ourselves without like letting other people kind of drill in that like, oh, like you don't have a son, or like or sometimes I used to get like, oh, you're the son that your dad never had. But it's like, I'm capable of doing everything that a guy is capable of doing, sometimes better than guys, but let's say. But yeah, my family, we have such a strong female gene. My mom's side is basically like 80% girls. So sometimes it's a madhouse, but my source of inspiration has been driven continuously from the strong female role models that I see in my aunts, my grandma, my mom. So I think that gene in itself just has so much power that it shows us as we've grown up that like these people are here to support us. And I think the way that they've supported us has had such a strong influence on the people that like me and my cousins my sisters become today. So I think having that strong family support is so important.
Oh, without it, yeah, you wouldn't know where to go,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah. I just want to, for everybody watching too, we would love to hear where your source of inspiration also comes from. Female inspiration today. I want to shift gears and look deeper into your work and how you became an author. So I'd like to request all of our viewers to page to show you. It's incredibly inspiring, and we'll talk more about your train of thought for the book. I'm just gonna share my screen here.
We feel far away from this world. And there was bottle brush calling us the ocean fire, rippling beneath those stars. 7 miles, that's somewhere where we could breathe and be ourselves. Was the place where no things left in our shadow, long since gone. No, we seems gone, lifted that. We seems gone, lifted that. Where we breathe for love.
That I've seen it almost 3 times now, and it gets me every single time. So I want to know from you, how was that experience like writing a book? There's something playing in the background. So was it always like, was it a way for you to express yourself based on, your journey and your hardships, or has becoming an author always been something that you're interested in? I'm curious to see your train of thought from that.
Yeah, I mean, as far back as I can remember, like primary school, that's what we call it in the UK. So here it's before high school. And I remember I used to be so creative with my writing. And I had put together this story. I remember the biro that I wrote it with. And it was about like all the fairy tales combined. Jack and the Beanstalk was in it. Puss in the Boots was in it. And Red Riding Hood. I put them all together, kind of like a hoodwinked, and I made a great story. And I remember getting an A+ or something great on that. And it was just great. Like, I love that story that I wrote. And I thought, I can't believe that I wrote this. It was so nice. I had hoped that I could read it in years and years to come and just reminisce. But unfortunately, I don't have those exercise books from school anymore. But I still remember that story, not in detail, but I remember drawing the pictures and writing it all. And it just came to me one day when my dad said to me, what do you want to be when you grow up? Every parent will ask their child that question. And he asked me that question. Amongst things, author was one of my answers. Little did I know that it would be something that would happen. I mean, obviously, when you're a child, when you say something, you think you're going to get it. But I never put in the effort to go down that route. It was just something that I wanted to do. So once I did go to college, I enrolled in communication studies because my writing, I wanted it to be not just like as a book, but maybe in articles for magazines, and communication studies was a great stepping stone. Mm-hmm. Then we moved to Canada. So I was trying to get something in writing, and it was just so difficult because I didn't know anybody here. We were so far from the city that it just didn't happen. And then, like it just kind of falls off the radar. You get a regular job, and you just kind of fall into that whole, this is what you're going to do. And then I was I was married at the time, I remember, and all of a sudden this idea came to me. I was like, this is really a really good idea. I mean, how would I put it? So I had like a whole synopsis in my head, and I thought, this is really like a good idea. I think it's a good idea, and I want to write about it. And it just actually, like, the words just flowed right through me. I just, whenever I was stuck, my dad always tells me to turn to God. My mom and my dad, they both tell me, when you're in a moment and you just don't know where to go and you're stuck, you just turn to God, right? It's not the easiest. I mean, it's the best advice to give someone, but it's not the easiest to follow, especially for me. So at those times, I would just turn to the computer and I would start writing. But I did let the words flow right through me. I wasn't picking at every single word and every single sentence as I was doing it. I just was typing and typing and typing and typing until, before you know it, I had one chapter.
Nice.
And it was just, it was great. The biggest mistake I made then was sending my close friends and family the first chapter saying, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to write a book, and everybody's like, oh, it's so great. We're so proud of you. And so then I thought, my job is done. I've done it. It's great. Yay for me, right? But yeah, that is not the case. I had to work hard at it. So I had to get back into it. And then after that, I didn't tell anybody that I was still working on it. I just picked it back up. And you know what? The writing came in handy when my life wasn't good. That's when I did it. And it's not, I know the book trailer has my pictures in it. I have to thank my niece for that, because another woman, she put together the trailer for me.
It's so great. I had goosebumps all 3 times that I watched it.
Yeah, she did an amazing job, because she's studying like marketing and stuff as well. So she put it together for me. She did a flawless job. And she used my pictures because I wanted it to be real. Like, the story's not about me. And a lot of people will make that mistake and think that I am the main character. I'm not the main character. Oh, can I just turn it down a little bit? Because it's too bright. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Sorry. So yeah, I'm not the main character at all. At the time, I was not happy in my marriage. So I wrote about everything that is ideal in my mind, but I didn't want it to be perfect. So I took from how I was feeling to put it all on paper, and the result was Autumn Love, and I'm so happy that I accomplished what I wanted to accomplish, and I've kind of put a halt to things because life happened, and I have like a little daughter. She's
adorable, by the
way. She's not crying right now, but she's my world, and I believe that for her to grow into a healthy individual and empowered woman, she needs all the attention from me, and everything else can wait, because time will happen. And when she lets go of mommy's arms, then I'll have all the time in the world to fulfill my dreams.
No, I think that's so great. I remember in grade 10, we had this like little story writing thing, and I was like, I can't write for the life of me. Like, I just can't do it. I can speak usually, but I can't write. And so my teacher was like, no, I think you should write. And I was like, okay, what should I write about? He's like, write about something that you can put real emotion into, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a true story. He said, when you let things run with your emotions, everyone says, like, lead with your brain. That teacher told me lead with my heart. And I remember getting a really good grade on it. And I just started writing more and more after that. And then it became like a thing where I was happy with what I was producing. And I guess, like, sometimes you just need a push in the right direction to be able to, compose something that you didn't think that you were capable of doing.
Well, one thing about what you just said, sorry to intervene on that, but you have to take the word can't out of your vocabulary. There are some things that are impossible, but just like being empowered, impossible is made up of 2 words. I'm possible, which means that, if you're possible, anything is possible. And even the impossible things that you would think, they are possible, even if it's in a dream. We can do anything we want to do. But the second that we say the word can't, we're fulfilling our own prophecy, and we won't become what we want to become, and we won't do what we want to do. So take that word out of your vocabulary, and you will see changes in anything in
I
the
know.
future, not just writing, but
in life in general. I guess like sometimes like some things that people tell you in the most direct way are applicable to so many more things if you just kind of go like this and open up that blind side. So I think that's really important to have a little bit of an open kind of mindset towards things that sometimes seem difficult or impossible. But I do want to shift gears again. It's a little bit all over the place, but there's so much that I want to talk about. So a little bit about just talking about where women stand in the South Asian community, especially. I think we can both relate to that. So I want to talk a little bit about this. There's a little bit of a misconception that feminism is about women trying to be equal to men, or that feminism is anti-male. I know my friends always kind of dig at me when they tell me that, like, oh, you're a feminist. And I said, I'm not a feminist. I just want something where I want a society where that sexist thinking and where the actions in itself are the problems. I want that to be eradicated. For something like just telling me that, oh, like, hey, you shouldn't be playing that sport because it's a guy's sport. Like, just like little things like that, where I will stand up for women, and people will tell me that, like, hey, stop it, because all you're talking about is girls, and what about the guys? Where's the menism? And I said, you kind of have to define the problem in order to bring about the change before you start throwing these things out in the air. It's very real what happens to women, and as truthful as it is, guys don't go through the same treatment. So in the wide range of your experiences, have you ever been subject to discrimination because of your gender or where you come from, especially?
I'd like to touch upon South Asians in particular, because I've found it culturally to be a problem to be a girl or a woman. I mean, growing up in the family that I've grown up in, it's not been a problem, and my mom has stood up for us, and it's like girl power. And my dad, like I said, he was so encouraging for us. So to go into another household and realize that, wow, not everybody is raised the same way. Everything's so different. The point of a woman in a South Asian relationship, not all of them, I mean, because times are changing, but generations back, the woman just says nothing and does everything, right? And they subject themselves to so many things, and they just don't say anything. And it's, you know what, people would think it's out of fear, but it's not always out of fear. It's out of respect, because that's the respect that you have for a man back in those days. Yeah. And to know that it still goes on in today's day and age is a very sad thing, because the world is moving forward. And, we're migrating to more modern countries. But when people do migrate and they keep their way of thinking and they're holding on, I mean, there's one thing, culture's one thing, but there's values that don't need to be carried on. Like there's honor killings. I've been reading a lot of autobiographies lately that are as recent as like the 21st century, where the honor killings are happening. And, girls grow up and their parents just care about what they do in society and how it's going to make them look. Like, don't talk to a boy because it's going to make you look like this. It doesn't matter if you ask him for help with your homework. Yeah. It just matters that you're talking to a boy and people will see it and they'll talk. So, these girls that I read about, they're living in this really trapped environment. And to grow up and to not be able to be yourself, it's just a really sad thing. I always say, in your own home, you should be able to be yourself.
And safe.
And, as a girl, I mean, I don't know if you've been married or not, but so just be prepared.
I'm so young.
Well, the times are changing, so I'm sure that culturally it'll change and move forward. But as a girl, it's kind of like in my mind, I had already gotten used to the idea that I'm going to be leaving my mom and dad. I'm going to gain a new set of parents. I'm going to move out of my parents' roof. I'd already dealt with that, and I think that when you get married in our culture, the man doesn't grasp that understanding that this girl left her parents. It's like an expectation,
Right.
to just uproot from your family. But your love for your parents never dies. I'm always going to be their daughter, and I'm always going to go back and visit them because I care, even though the role is supposed to be for their daughter-in-law to take care of them,
Yeah.
when they've got 4 daughters.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like now times are changing and things are different. But when a woman takes on a man's last name, when the baby takes on the man's last name, when a woman leaves her parents and calls her in-laws mom and dad, it's a society that we've grown up in, and it's all fairly normal, and nobody would think anything of it. And maybe we shouldn't. Why should we care if the baby has the father's last name? If you're supposed to stay together forever, it shouldn't be a big deal, right? But these little things matter if women are going to be valued moving forward. There is so much to say. You're so right, and I think this is half an hour, right?
Yeah. No, you mentioned the last name. My mom's sister, actually, she kept both her maiden last name and her husband's last name. And I always tell my mom, I said, that's what I want to do. She's like, why? I'm like, because that's still part of my identity. It's not like I want to just kick it off the curb. Like, that's always going to be, if equal or more important to me. Like, that's always going to be there. So I always tell my aunt, I'm like, I want that. So I think that the last name thing that you brought up is so funny that you say that. But yeah, I completely agree with you. And just talking about how this change will come. I know you mentioned a little bit about how people have to kind of, step out of their comfort zone and accept that times are changing. But how do you think as a community in itself, women are going to be viewed as equal parts?
Okay. Here I'm just going to touch up a little bit on some of what I went through because I haven't really touched on it.
Yeah.
But I'll do it in short. Is that I've talked about being married. I'm not married. I'm not in that relationship anymore. But I did have 2 children in that relationship. Fortunately, I haven't had any physical or verbal contact for over 4 years. And it's quite a sad story. And it's always going to be close to my heart. And when you watch my book trailer, there is a picture of me with my son, which just makes me smile. But it's sad for me that I haven't had any contact with them for 4 years. So when you say what's got to change in society, as a mother that doesn't have her children, it's kind of like, don't think that just because we're the mothers and we carry the children for 9 months, that we're automatically going to get custody. Don't think that, that we're stronger because we can go through labor without crying. Like men have, they talk about man flu and how women, we don't need any support when we're sick. All these things. It's just, I think in that whole game of things, we're still humans, and that's something that people forget. We do have different capabilities with our bodies because of that's biology, right? But it doesn't make us any less capable than a man. And so my biggest thing about the change is that as a mother and not having my children, it's kind of that misconception. People will look at me and think, oh, if they know that I don't have my children, oh, I did something wrong.
Right.
And actually, I have to say I'm at fault because I would have thought the same thing too, right? If a dad doesn't have his kids, it's probably normal in people's minds.
Right.
But now, having been exposed to what I believe is parental alienation, I realized that it's a common misperception. If a woman doesn't have her kids, it doesn't make her less of a mother. Maybe she wasn't a good enough mother. Who knows? But there's a story behind it to tell for me, especially. And so don't just think that things come easy because you're a mother, you get your kids, and that's where change starts. People need to stop thinking things are going to be a certain way, or it's easy for women. It's not easy for women. Women do it because they have to do it. It doesn't mean it's easy. We're born to have to do it.
Yeah.
So we just do. And the change has to be with men and women, right? I mean, first and foremost, it has to be within ourselves, because the famous saying goes is you are the change. You are the change you wish to see in the world. You have to be that change that you wish to see in the world. So it has to start from within. I can't be sitting here criticizing people if I haven't self-reflected to work on myself. Because once I set an example, monkey see, monkey do, right? Like once I set an example, my daughter, she's gonna follow in my footsteps. She's gonna mirror my behavior. It's not what I say. It's 90% of our communication is nonverbal, right? So it doesn't have to be what you say. I could say all the nicest things in the world. So the men, they just have to kind of give us more support and encouragement. You know, we have egos too. It'd be nice to be appreciated and you know, push that ego button once in a while. Tell us how great we are. Tell us how beautiful we look. You know, I mean, it's not going to work against you. It's only going to work in your favor, because all the books tell me that we should be pushing the guy's ego button a lot. But women have egos too, and we need our ego button pushed sometimes. Yeah. So men need to, I think, realize that, and women at the same time, we're all capable of being empowered. So you don't need to bring somebody else down. You don't need to compete with somebody else. There's nothing in your favor for that. Like if you and your best friend, you share the same dreams, well, why not work together and build off of each other? Why would you knock one down?
There's more power in that if you're playing at an even playing field, and you both know that there is a certain amount of like mutual respect, and that has to be reciprocated. I think you're capable of doing great things if women in itself come together.
It's so true. Yeah, and that's one of the biggest gaps with women, is that too often we're competitive, and there's no reason to be competitive, because if we work together, the results are going to be even greater than if we work alone. There's so many expressions that I could throw at you when I'm saying all these things, because I've learned it through all these quotes I've read and through life's journey, of course.
So you mentioned a baby, she's adorable, managing all these different, managing COVID and managing life in itself. How do you take care of yourself so that you stay balanced and centered, and being able to put all these things and your energy in the right place?
Okay, well, when I read that you were going to ask me that question, I was like, oh my God, what do I do to stay balanced and centered? I really had to take a moment, because honestly, I'm not always balanced and I'm not always centered. So I have to admit that I'm not. I'm not, the greatest at that. But what I have learned is that when I am balanced and centered, the things that I do, I make sure I get rest. Rest is really important for me. And if I'm not sleeping, when I'm tired, I'm gonna get cranky and frustrated, and I acknowledge that. So I do get my rest when I'm feeling like that. I don't have much time to focus on me, because I choose to focus on my daughter, and I will continue to do that until she doesn't need me anymore. But she's my first and foremost. When she is sleeping and I have time to focus on me, I'll read a book, and I'll watch a movie to escape from the real world and to give me ideas if I want to write in the future. I'll write a little bit. I'll play some of my music. I'm very, my whole world is very creative. I just like to be in that creative energy. And, if at any moment, one of the biggest things for me is, it comes from my mom and dad, and I'm like I said, I'm working on it. But one of the biggest things is in staying balanced and well-centered. I mean, there's nothing stopping you from going from a moment of peace and calmness to complete absolute tragedy. But you have to remember in that tragedy moment that you can be back in that peaceful and calmful state. So I'm being very mindful to turn my attention towards God. People can call it anything that they want, the universe or the omnipotent. It's all one and the same. And when you do turn your energy towards that, at all times, it's going to do only great things. So that's something that I am working on, to stay balanced all the time, because that's my biggest obstacle, is when I'm in a moment of panic. I just don't know what to do, and my outlets aren't always the most healthy, and they need to be, mindful. And I think the greatest power is what surrounds us. That's going to get me through those moments.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think having that faith, regardless of what it's in or who it's in, is so important, especially.
I'm laughing because there's a little pitter patter over here.
Oh, there is. I'm glad you caught that. But yeah, I think regardless of what it's in or who it's in or how much of a faith that you have, I think just applying that in the right energy, I think that that's the most important thing. And I've started to do that now as, being at home for so long. It's how do I apply my energy in the right places so that one, I'm not bored, and two, I'm doing something that I like. And I think that that's something that's really important in order to stay balanced. I just to wrapping things up quickly. What suggestion or advice can you give to women who necessarily aren't in the best place in life right now, or they feel like they're capable of doing so much more, but they have this kind of energy at the back of them pushing them down? So what do you have to say about to those women?
Okay, I think one of the biggest mistakes that we can make is reflecting on our past. I know I've made that mistake for the longest time, and you just can't do it. You can look back to your past, maybe hold on to the happy moments, but when you're in a moment and you just can't move forward, you feel like there's no way out. You can't look back and say, "Oh, I've never had anything," or you can't look back and say, "Oh, I had it then. Why don't I have it now?"
Right.
You have to just be present in that moment. You know where you are, and you don't want to be in that moment.
Right.
So you have to create a visual. So I mean, for example, I'm going to give an example. If you're in a work environment, and you feel like you're always being trodden on, your ideas are always getting stolen, and you're just not moving up ahead, and you just feel like, oh God, like what is this? Is this my karma? Do I deserve it? Or you're thinking you deserve better, but everything you're doing is not working. You have to start within yourself, because honestly, we do have a lot of doubts when these things happen to us. You just have to create a visual in your mind, even write it out if you want, and just see where you want to be. Like, so see yourself sitting behind a desk in an office with a door, maybe a window, writing policies if that's what you want to do, and see the paycheck that goes with that, and just see it all in your mind, and not just for one moment, but as many times as you can. Just visualize where you want to be, and even if you're not in that, it can happen, and live like you're actually in that. I'm not saying spend thousands and thousands of dollars because you're visualizing you're going to make millions.
Right.
Be mindful of that, but like, just know that it's possible, and give yourself positive affirmations every night, every morning, and as often as you can. Remind yourself, I can do that. I'm going to go places today. I'm going to do this. I'm beautiful. I'm very capable of doing that. I'm going to fly high in the sky. Tell yourself all these things before you go to sleep, so when you wake up, you believe them. And you'll never see anything but what you want to see.
Right.
And you'll never have to look to anybody else for inspiration, because you can one day look in the mirror at yourself and say, I am my own inspiration, and I can inspire others because I'm inspiring myself.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. You mentioned visualization. One of my really close friends, he told me that something that I think will help you is writing things down. Make a checklist, or write down where you see yourself in a year, in 5 years, and start to cross those things out as they come. Because there's power. Oh, that feels so good to check something off that you've written down and set a goal for yourself. So I think visualizing things is definitely a great idea for people who don't know where to start, or if they're stuck. I want to just show everybody your book trailer again to wrap things up, because it's so great and more people have joined. So I want them to also see that, and we will wrap things up after that.
We were young, we felt gold, we felt something, we felt far away from this world. Then there was Bottle Brush calling us the ocean fire, reveling beneath those stars. 7 miles, that track sent us somewhere where we could breathe and be ourselves. This was the place better than all things left in our shadow long since gone. No seems gone. Lifted that door. No more greedy hearts, only life and soul. Oh, we seems gone. We lifted that door. No more greedy hearts, only life and soul. Where we breathe for love.
Thank you for that. So I just want to wrap up here very quickly. Thank you so much for joining us today, talking about everything that you've talked about. I know it's very hard, but you do it with so much grace, and it just feels so natural for you to talk about. And I think that there's more power to you for being able to express your story in the way that you've done and use that, experience and change it and transcribe it into something positive for people watching and the people that will come to watch this afterwards as well. So thank you for that. For everybody who is watching, if you think that this will be beneficial to someone or helpful, please remember that we will have a replay of today's show posted shortly after the live ends. So be sure to send that out. There were a lot of positive and powerful messages that were communicated today, and I think that's very important to share if we're going to make that little droplet of water a bigger pool. So thank you for joining me today as well. Again, I hope that you were able to, kind of get some emotions out of yourself, because I think there's so much power when we're talking about things that it helps kind of ease out our brain as well.
It was great. It was great having everybody here, and thank you so much, John B, for having me as well.
Thank you.